Alright guys, quick update on some recent videos here. The seasteading video. I, let you guys know that Chad and Nadia, that couple that's done the seasteading stuff, I had acquired a cruise ship, and they were going to try to start the first seastead off the coast of Panama. As it turns out, that didn't work out. Apparently, they just were unable to get any sort of insurance, supposedly, so that whole plan kind of went out the window. I guess they had to give it up and sell it to a scrapyard. Honestly, the whole situation sounds a little weird. I'm not really sure exactly what happened there. Not sure the details, but yeah, it is what it is. So unfortunately, seasteading isn't quite as close as it seemed like. We're not any further back, but there's not necessarily a huge jump forward as far as we know. And then so I'll probably take that down or do an update on it. The election vid got nuked because you're not really allowed to talk about blatant election fraud unless you're Times Magazine, and I'm not Times Magazine, so I got my first strike on the channel. I'll probably start diversifying videos, or at least platforms, just in case I get myself nuked. I mean, I'm so small time, it's almost difficult to get nuked, but it's always possible, and might as well support some of these other things like Odyssey, BitChute, what have you. So anyway, on that seasteading vid, I had a comment from a woman who has a family of 6, and seasteading didn't sound right, but they are shopping around for a new country. They are thinking of moving to a new country, and she basically asked for my advice on what country to move to. What country should they look at? So I thought, you know what, that is an excellent topic for a video. So let's do it. Let's do kind of a case study here. Look at this woman's situation and look at what countries you might want to move to in the current year, which is 2021 at the moment. So let's go over it. So basically, this is as a woman with a family of 6, and she said they're self-employed. So I brought up a series of questions that I told her she might want to ask herself here. So number 1, what are your must-haves for a new place of residence? So if you want to pick a new country, like you're going to pick a new home, you need to understand or have an idea of what things you can't live without. What's like really important things that you just need to have when you're going to a new place. Number 2, the flip side of that coin is, what are you willing to give up if necessary? In other words, identify the things that really don't matter to you at all, especially if they're things that people typically want. So on the one hand, like, I've been doing like freelance programming, and that's all online. It's remote work, so internet is like non-negotiable. I'm like, most of my hobbies and work are all on a computer and the internet, so I need to have good internet. So for me, that's like a must-have for me. The flip side of that coin being, what are you willing to give up if necessary? There's some people that could care less about technology. And if that's the case, if you really don't care about the internet, you don't care about technology, that's good. That's a good thing to keep in mind, because that opens up a lot of different interesting options for you in that particular case. So those were the first 2. And then question 3 was, do you know any foreign languages? That is self-explanatory. Obvious benefits to that, obvious relevance. Number 4, do you happen to have any ancestry that would help you get citizenship or residency anywhere else? It's kind of rare, but it's something to look into. Sometimes you could, you happen to have grandparents that were from a particular country that actually came over, and boom, you automatically have citizenship. So that's kind of rare for that to be the case, but worth looking into because it's just, boom, sometimes it's free citizenship. And then, all right, so her answers to these questions. Number one, the must-haves is space for 6 people. They would prefer to be able to get a place that is rural, and homeschooling freedom is important. And they'd like space to do like the gardening and sort of maybe a little self-sufficiency type stuff. So it's funny that you're actually from Illinois, which is hilarious. That is actually my place of origin. And my condolences for being in Illinois. Honestly, you could just hop the border into Indiana, Missouri, wherever else, and immediately improve your life. But if you're looking to leave the U.S. entirely, I certainly understand. That's what I did. Yeah, certainly nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, one funny thing about Illinois is it's, I mean, honestly, it's a shithole, but homeschooling is one of the things where Illinois is like really lax as far as laws. So it's actually very easy to homeschool in Illinois. You can't do anything else, but you can homeschool. So that was number one for the must-haves. For number two, what would you specifically not care about, or what would you specifically be easily willing to give up? She couldn't really think of anything specific. That's fine. Question 3, do you know any foreign languages? Some Spanish. Okay, good to know. Number 4, as far as ancestry, no beneficial ancestry that she knows of. Oh, and there was another question where I asked, they said they were self-employed, so I asked what that meant, because self-employed could mean like you're freelancing like me. It could mean you have like an actual business you've built that's more passive income and just business maintenance. Or it could mean you're like a 1099 contractor and you're pretty much an employee that's just allowed to live remotely. So those situations mean different things for you as far as your flexibility. In their particular case, they essentially work online. I think it's they work in the education space. I think it's in a sort of a freelance capacity. Could be wrong on that, but they work in education. It's online. Or it could be like you have a business that is local, like it's brick and mortar, it's a physical business. So that would really make a difference when you're choosing countries. If it's like you need to be able to go somewhere where you can set up shop and have a market there and carry your business over. All right, so with those answers in mind, we will go to my recommendations or my thoughts on this. I want you to keep in mind I only really have experience with like 2 countries, being Paraguay and Chile, and one region being Latin America. So all I can do is tell you what I know based on where I've been. Anywhere outside of that I can only kind of speculate, but I'll just give you my thoughts. So let's start with Chile. That's just happens to be where I've been and where I'm living for the moment and where I have the most experience. So with Chile, if you're looking at like, space for 6 people, a rural place for gardening and homeschooling freedom, all that's fine. Homeschooling freedom, no problem. You could you find a place in the countryside to rent or buy? Sure, there's plenty of rural areas. I guess one benefit of Chile is it's a long noodle of a country, and basically you can pick whatever climate you want and just go to the right latitude, find a small town, and boom, you got whatever ideal climate you prefer. So I would say some of the I guess some of the upsides of Chile is the nature is pretty amazing. You can pick your climate. Homeschooling freedom, certainly no problem. Or honestly, the homeschooling thing is almost no problem anywhere. outside of like white countries. Like you go outside of white countries, I don't think you would have any legal problems with homeschooling. I mean, maybe some Asian countries are more difficult, could be difficult depending on where you're at. But yeah, don't worry about that. Nature's pretty amazing. You can pick your climate, and it would certainly be a good place to like at Fort Galt here. If you're wanting to like just buy land and then like build your own home or something, it's a great place for that. As far as, but I that's not what you want to do. That in your situation, I don't think that's what you're going for. I think you want to find like a place that's already built, that's big enough for your whole family, and you know, rent or buy in the countryside, and have the existing infrastructure and all that. And could you do that Chile? Could you do that in Chile? Sure, entirely possible. So some of the downsides is Chile is probably number one, a little more expensive than most other places in Latin America. One benefit is it does technically have the best infrastructure in South America. You will want good internet, which you can get no problem. Although on the internet side, with Starlink coming, that's almost a non-issue anymore. That pretty much Starlink is pretty much going to open up the whole world to the possibility of like internet's no longer a deal breaker. It's no longer a problem because you can get it through Starlink if you can't get it anywhere else. But other infrastructure is better here too than other places, roads and what have you. So as far as downsides, number one, dealing with bureaucracy. Well, I mean that's hell anywhere. But technically I'm illegal right now. But my visa ran out, and like I don't know anyone who has their visa situation sorted out. It's always been difficult to deal with, just dealing with immigration and getting them to approve visas of any kind, other than tourist. And when COVID hit, like the government just kind of stopped working, so that makes it next to impossible to like just deal with your visa stuff and update it and keep it current. So that's one real pain in the ass with Chile. And with a family of 6, it's like you gotta fly down here, and then like if things go wrong with your visas, and then you gotta like leave. I mean, it's expensive. It's gonna be expensive to move your family around, so that's a difficult one. I would mention the sort of massive commie swing of the politics. You know, I've talked about the riots that were here that preceded the U.S. riots, and you know, overall the politics are really kind of swinging in the wrong way. Not that that's going to make it any worse than the rest of Latin America. Things have not gone terribly well in the U.S., so that doesn't matter quite as much. Kind of think of what else is kind of would be a downside. I guess those are the major downsides. If you came down here and like bought land or something, that might make the visa situation a lot easier. But you would. Well, the other thing is lockdowns. Like the COVID response in Chile. Actually, this is the big one. The COVID response in Chile has been pretty ridiculous. I guess I'm hearing it's pretty ridiculous in all of Latin America. Like there's just severe, strict lockdowns everywhere. But we've had some pretty bad ones here. We've been in stage 1 twice, which is like you have to ask the government for permission online to literally go anywhere, ever. We're out of that now. We're in stage 2 in the region that I'm in. But the COVID response has been ridiculous, and between that and the riots that came before and everything, Chile is making it incredibly difficult to recommend. And that's not an earthquake, that's the dog. Chile is making it incredibly difficult to recommend at the moment. I would like to see the lockdowns like go away before really recommending coming here. And The other main thing is the visa situation. Like, I don't know. It's a real pain in the ass here. Um, but yeah, that's the summary on Chile. It's great for picking whatever climate you want. Um, you know, good infrastructure. Finding a place in the countryside, no problem. Homeschooling, no problem. Downsides are, you know, more expensive than neighbors. Lockdowns are kind of ridiculous, um, and have been draconian at times. And navigating government bureaucracy and the visas, I think, seems particularly bad here. All right, so the other one is Paraguay. I have been to Paraguay. Let's see. Benefits of Paraguay. Going to be pretty cheap. They've had lockdowns, but I don't think they've ever been. I don't think that lockdowns in Paraguay have ever been nearly as draconian. They haven't been able to. Um, so I think the worst thing is like all they can really do is basically require businesses to require masks through licensing, through the threat of business license. So that's about as far as it's gone in Paraguay. Um, the one benefit is if you need to do, like, as far as getting residency, um, you know, residency or even citizenship or just what have you, get visas. I know exactly who you can talk to, and that'll be the easiest place to deal with, you know, immigration type stuff. As far as some downsides, it is basically borderline subtropical, so you're going to be dealing with oppressive, like, jungle heat in the summer, like oppressive jungle heat. So you would need to be able to tolerate that if you're going to be there year round. That comes with the same environmental issues of like creepy crawlies and mosquitoes and like lizards and things. So pest control and weatherproofing is like important. So you would have to be okay with those things or be willing to tolerate them. Going to be cheaper than most countries. And yeah, as far as Paraguay, it culturally and just sort of the social environment, Paraguay's just a chill place. It's a very relaxed, chill place. That's one upside. Um, and then yeah, I'm sure you could find houses available that you could rent or buy in the countryside. And apparently, the internet situation has gotten a lot better since I was there. Although again, we have Starlink anyway. But yeah, that's a quick rundown on Paraguay. So that's the only places I've really lived for any period of time. I visited Argentina. That's a great place if you want like professionalism and incredibly warm, friendly people. I don't know much beyond that, other than I'm pretty sure their lockdowns have been quite draconian, like a lot of other places in Latin America. But you know, one place I've been thinking a lot about recently is Mexico, and I think I'm gonna need to do some traveling here in the upcoming year, because I'm illegal anyway. So when I leave, I'm gonna need to stay outside Chile for probably 6 months, and I'm really thinking about visiting Mexico, because like they've been in the news lately, like doing some surprisingly interesting things, like offering Julian Assange sanctuary if he can ever get there. Their lockdowns have not been draconian. I heard that Mexico City had one that was pretty bad, but like other than that, they're not really doing lockdowns. With all the travel COVID restrictions, like you have to get tests and all this stuff, you actually don't have to do that going to Mexico. And the other thing about Mexico is, number one, I think it'd be a heck of a lot easier to get your family there. Number two, if you're US citizens, you actually get a 6-month tourist visa. And, you know, I don't know how easy it is navigating Mexican bureaucracy or getting residency and visas, but a 6-month tourist visa, which usually almost anywhere, if you get a tourist visa, you can usually do a quick border run and at least get one more. But yeah, just that would give you a year. But yeah, 6 months to a year is just such a better runway. Like, you have a much bigger runway to figure out the visa and residency situation. It's going to be easier and cheaper to get your family there. And you won't have to you don't have to worry about, like, oh man, we have to figure out how to stay here for in the next 3 months. Have to figure out how we're going to do it. You get at least 6, probably a year, before you need to have that finalized. And I'm sure, Mexico is a big place. I'm sure it would be no problem finding a place to rent or buy that would be rural, where you can do gardening and all that. So honestly, for your situation, I think I might really have to recommend Mexico, at least for taking your first stab at it, if nothing else. That's what I would look into if I were you. Okay, guys, quick addendum that I forgot about. Go to borderlessblog.com. It's run by a guy named James Guzman. He deals with getting passports, starting an expat life, living abroad, things like that. And he's actually living in Mexico. He's an American expat living in Mexico, so that'd be the place to go for info. borderlessblog.com. So yeah, that's my main thoughts on it. Obviously it's a bigger world out there. There's other places to go, but it's like, I don't know if I can recommend anywhere in North America or Europe or anywhere in the Anglosphere, the English-speaking world. Australia is living up to its reputation of being a prison colony, and Europe is just insane. And trying to get residency and stuff there is usually not terribly easy. There's plenty of places in Asia you could go to, but going anywhere where it's like crossing oceans like that, or going to the other side of the world, it's like, you got a family of 6, it's expensive, and then you're like stuck there, and if it doesn't work out, like having to go back, and then you're talking about very different languages and very different cultures. A place like Mexico, they're used to English-speaking gringos. A little Spanish. So much closer. And yeah, I'm just not really. There aren't really any other regions coming to mind that would be a good bet. Like, you got places like Singapore. That's English-speaking and people like it, but that requires. I'm pretty sure isn't that basically a city? Like, I don't know if there's much rural countryside in Singapore. And yeah, it's just so much farther away, and the culture shock and language issues. I think Latin America is still a pretty good bet. And given your situation, I think everybody should kind of take a look at Mexico, just because of the way they've surprised me and everybody else with some of their recent moves regarding some of the positions they've just taken on COVID and big tech and whistleblowers like Assange. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. So that would be my advice. Take a second look at Mexico, and if you're out there looking for a new country to move to, just think about those questions that I put out there, and yeah. I don't know. That's just what I got off the top of my head. And any further questions, by all means, put them down below, and I'll answer them if I can, or maybe you'll give me another decent video idea. So that's it for now. Thanks for hanging out, and I will talk to you guys later.